Hello, I'm Tamsin, and welcome back to English Sound Building, the advanced pronunciation podcast that celebrates the physical side of language learning, encouraging you to do the work to build muscle memory, and master new sounds. As always, let's start with a reminder that successful communication is possible in any one of the thousands of global English accents. There is no ideal. But learning about pronunciation helps with clearer speech. It will improve your listening too. It's fascinating and it's fun, and that is why we're here. If you'd find it useful to read as you listen, remember that you can find a script for this podcast on my Patreon page. That's www.patreon.com/EnglishBrickByBrick. You'll find the link in the episode notes. The script is on the podcast website as well. If you do visit my Patreon, remember that everything is free on there. Just scroll down on the main page. It is just me writing, recording, and editing these podcasts in my free time, though. So if you like what I do and you are able to support me, please do. And as always, thank you so much to those of you who already are supporting me or who have done. So this week we are back in the wonderful world of word stress. We've spoken about this a little before. Firstly, over a year ago, back in season 1, episode 4, when we first talked about schwa. And then again, when we looked at those unstressed words, the weak forms of grammar words at the beginning of season 3. I'm willing to bet that word stress is an area you've struggled on in other places in the past as well. It isn't always obvious in English, and every learner will stress a word in the wrong place from time to time. In fact, I almost never teach a class, even at the highest level, where word stress doesn't come up at all. It's also worth noting that word stress can be different in different global Englishes, and even from speaker to speaker. So what you hear from one person might not be the same as you hear from another. It will actually be great practice for you over the next few days and weeks as you're listening to other sources of English to see if you notice any differences in word stress, either with the words we're going to talk about today or any others. Also, as with all other aspects of language, things are constantly evolving here. Word stress does change, so what you hear today might not always match stress patterns from the past or future. With all of that said, while confusion over word stress is inevitable to some extent, I think it's still important to get word stress right where you can, because incorrectly placed word stress is often the source of momentary miscommunication. Your listener will be expecting the stress to fall in a certain place and can fail to understand your word or your meaning overall if it doesn't. The good news is that there are some places where, if not rules, then there are guidelines about where to place word stress. This week, we're thinking about just one of those. We're thinking about two-syllable nouns and verbs, where the word can be stressed differently depending on its word class. Here, the stress on the noun tends to be on the first syllable and the verb on the second. For example, in this week's title, Record the Record, record, the verb, is stressed on the second syllable, record, but record, noun, is stressed on the first. Record. Record the record. As I said, this isn't an absolute rule. There are exceptions, but it's a pretty good guideline to follow. I will add here that these contrasts in stress can affect some noun or verb and adjective pairs too, but these are less common and they follow guidelines even less. We're not going to worry about them today. We may talk about them in another episode in the future. As you listen and repeat today, practice really stressing that stressed syllable. To do this, you need to exaggerate your mouth position. You need to make the stressed syllable a little louder, perhaps a little higher, and a little longer. I often find that my learners feel really self-conscious over this. They feel that it's too exaggerated, but I promise it isn't. I hope you're in a quiet and safe space today where you feel that you can really go for it, exaggerating these word stresses. Also, as you listen, or perhaps the second time you listen, if you can, also consider whether you think these nouns and verbs have a very similar meaning, or if there's a difference in between them. We have a mixture of both in the list. Let's get stuck in. We have 22 noun-verb pairs. We're going to read the noun first and the verb second, so we'll be stressing the first syllable with the nouns, the second syllable with the verbs. Listen and repeat. Conduct, conduct. Conflict, conflict. Contest, contest. Contract, contract. Convert, convert. Desert, desert. Escort, escort. Export, export. Extract, extract. Insert, insert. Insult, insult. Object, object. Permit, permit. Present, present. Progress, progress. Project, project. Rebel, rebel. Recall, recall. Record, record. Subject, subject. Survey, survey. Suspect, suspect. Fantastic. If you need to listen to those words individually again, pause the podcast here and rewind. If you're ready to move on, we're going to practice some sentences with some of those pairs. Again, we're going to listen and repeat. As usual, I will read once slowly for you to grasp the meaning. I'll pause just to give you a little thinking break, and then I will read 2 more times at a more natural pace, pausing after each one for you to repeat. And as before, make sure you are really exaggerating that word stress. Sentence 1. As you progress, I'll note your progress. As you progress, I'll note your progress. As you progress, I'll note your progress. Sentence 2. Do you recall the product recall? Do you recall the product recall? Do you recall the product recall? Sentence 3. He was so insulted by the insult. He was so insulted by the insult. He was so insulted by the insult. Sentence 4. The convert had quickly converted. The convert had quickly converted. The convert had quickly converted. Sentence 5. And I should have said at the beginning, there are more of these than usual today. We have 10 sentences in this part. Sentence 5. The exports are exported daily. The exports are exported daily. The exports are exported daily. Sentence 6. The project projected impressive profits. The project projected impressive profits. The project projected impressive profits. Sentence 7. The subjects were subjected to stress. The subjects were subjected to stress. The subjects were subjected to stress. Sentence 8. The survey surveyed 3 groups of patients. The survey surveyed 3 groups of patients. The survey surveyed 3 groups of patients. Sentence 9. They conflicted over the root of the conflict. They conflicted over the root of the conflict. They conflicted over the root of the conflict. And sentence 10. We extracted the extract slowly. We extracted the extract slowly. We extracted the extract slowly. Great work. And to finish, we are going to look at 5 more sentences. This time, each sentence uses more than one pair of those verb-noun pairs. Listen and repeat. I suspect that the suspect contested the contest. I suspect that the suspect contested the contest. I suspect that the suspect contested the contest. Sentence 2. The permit permitted them to desert the desert. The permit permitted them to desert the desert. The permit permitted them to desert the desert. Sentence 3. The rebel rebelled and recorded a record. The rebel rebelled and recorded a record. The rebel rebelled and recorded a record. Sentence 4. We escorted the escort to present a present. We escorted the escort to present a present. We escorted the escort to present a present. And sentence 5. They objected to the objects inserted in the inserts. They objected to the objects inserted in the inserts. They objected to the objects inserted in the inserts. Well done. And after the podcast, it would be a great exercise to think of some more sentences for the other pairs of words, or to see if you can think of more two-syllable words where the noun and verb form have those different stress patterns. I've picked those I feel are most common today, but there are many more. There we go. That is the end of this week's workout. Don't forget to practice as often as possible to build muscle and muscle memory, speeding the podcast up or slowing it down as you need to. As usual, if you are on social media and you would like to follow me, come find me on Instagram or Facebook at English Brick by Brick. You'll also find me on Patreon at www.patreon.com/EnglishBrickByBrick. Next week, we are staying with this word rather than sound level pronunciation, but we're looking at longer words and the fascinating topic of disappearing syllables. Enjoy sound building, and I'll see you then.